All right. We are live.
Hi. Oh, no.
All right. Nobody in the chat just yet, so I'm going to post it in the element. Got one person. Is that you?
No.
Okay. One person. It's not a great start, is it? Okay. Here we go. Got a few people coming in now. We have Eva. She says, well, I'm assuming this is she. Says hello or says hi. Hello, Eva. How are you? And we've got Jordan. How you doing, mate? He says, hi, mate. I hope you're well. Canelo in 5 or 6 next week for me. It's funny you say that. I completely forgot that fight is next week. So thanks for reminding me. Yeah, I tend to agree, to be honest. I don't really think Ryder's going to put that much of a dent in Canelo. Could Ryder win? Maybe. I think if he was to pull it off, probably won't be the strangest thing we've ever seen in boxing, but I wouldn't hold my breath, certainly not. So when you consider as well, it's like he's not only fighting Canelo, who's a very good fighter and has a lot of things in his favor, but he's also fighting in his hometown. So it's even more of a handicap. But yeah, be interesting to see how that one goes down. And yeah, once again, thanks for reminding me, because I completely forgot. A dowry pennant? Yes, it would. Tyson Fury versus Alexander Usyk, Anthony Joshua versus Deontay Wilder, Dylan White versus Jarrell Miller, all on the same card would be awesome. Yeah, too good to be true, I think, but I agree. If that got made, that would probably be, at least on paper, one of the best fight cards in decades. Maybe I'm forgetting some other significant fight nights, but you got probably the most important fight in the division being Tyson Fury versus Alexander Usyk, Anthony Joshua versus Deontay Wilder, potentially the most entertaining fight in the division, and Dylan White versus Jarrell Miller, probably the most entertaining build-up. Could also be the most entertaining fight stylistically. That would be quite good. Yeah, pay decent money for that. Dari also says They should just get rid of the Cruiserweight division because the majority of them are heavyweights. I'm not sure I agree with that. I think um, I think there is a quite clear distinction between cruiserweights and heavyweights today. Like, even if you look at some of the bigger heavyweights, like Usyk, for example, he was a big cruiserweight, but as a heavyweight, he's small, and he's not a small man. Usyk is still 6'3", still in the 220s. So he's not a small man, but it's just the heavyweights of today are just massive. Um, and the cruiserweights of today are kind of like the heavyweights of yesterday. Like maybe a 90s heavyweight. So there's a big difference. So I don't really mind there being a cruiserweight division because I think there is um, that big distinction between them. Because ultimately, if you look at what Usyk's done, there's no guarantee that the other cruiserweights could do that. Like, I think you need to have a certain X factor if you're a cruiserweight moving up. Like Usyk, great athlete and amazing technician. Potentially with Lawrence Okolie, he could move up to cruiserweight, but that's because he has a serious punch, and he's a big cruiserweight too. Yeah, so no, I'm happy with there being a cruiserweight division. I think there's more of an argument to kind of not um, not create the bridgerweight division because there are some small heavyweights who seem to be interested in fighting in that division. However, like Oscar Rivas, for example, you can't really say he's a small heavyweight. He's short, in comparison to the other guys, because I think Oscar Rivas is like 6 foot tops, and he might not even be that. He might be 5'10", 5'11", but he's not a big guy in terms of stature, but in terms of mass, he's pretty big. So yeah, I'm fine with cruiserweight, but bridgerweight, nah. Count me out. I'm not interested in that. Jordan Perry, how much do you reckon they will make us pay for that Saudi card? I'm thinking 80 to 70 pounds, 80 to 100 pounds. Maybe. I think I'd be surprised if it was more than 80. I think it could be around the kind of 70 pound mark. Obviously, this is just pure speculation because there's a lot of whispers and rumors and nothing seems to be concrete, based on what a lot of the relevant parties are saying. Negotiations or proper discussions haven't even really begun. It's an idea right now. And don't get me wrong, like everything starts with an idea. So this could have legs, but obviously we're talking prices already. We might be looking a bit too far down the line, but for what it is, the fights that would be included, I think £80 is probably the limit. And I'd need to have a think about whether I'm willing to part ways with that. However, it's a massive increase when you factor in, at least in the UK. In the US, I think they pay $70 for pay-per-view in standard definition, and if you want high definition pay-per-view, it's $100. So you're paying like $30 extra, which is an absolute scam. Like if you're paying something, you should just be able to get one tier HD, like that's it. But in the UK, it was really Fury was the one who pushed the boat out back in December when he fought Derek Chisora for like 30 quid. That was bad enough, but that was obviously a terrible matchup. And I don't even think the card was particularly that good. I know Dubois was on it, and that was an okay fight against Kevin Lorena. But I think, yeah, like £80 would be a stretch. However, if it's being spoken about now in kind of April time, that still gives you what, 7-8 months to save up your £80. So it's a little less of a blow financially for a pay-per-view. However, maybe it would set an unwanted precedent. I don't know, but just trying to see it from both sides. But I'd probably be willing to pay, but it depends, not too much. It's just boxing after all, and especially when you consider that a lot of fights they are just available the next day. Sometimes not even the next day, just a couple of hours afterwards. So yeah, paying for a pay-per-view is always, it's a bit of a gamble when you think about it, because the fights can turn out to be terrible as well. Iron Fist in the house says greetings. Hello, my friend. Hope you're doing well. Cruiserweight division is fine. The weight bullies in each division are not though. Yeah, that's one thing, is like there are a lot of weight bullies in boxing. And you could say, oh yeah, just bring back same day weigh-ins, but for the longest time I was interested in, I was kind of pushing that narrative of maybe boxing needs to go back to same day weigh-ins. And I guess you could probably debate it either way. But yeah, there are certain guys who are just genuinely weight bullies. Trying to think of some who come to mind. I suspect that Devin Haney is probably a weight bully. I don't think he'd be able to have the same amount of success against guys who match him for size. And I'll probably come across like a Devin Haney hater. Like, there was one guy, in fact, who tried to call me out on my my video, my early, not prediction, but announcement video of Devin Haney versus Lomachenko. And because I said that relative to Lomachenko, Haney's quite green, which he absolutely is. But I said that he could overcome that deficit by, being younger, being more energetic, more athletic, less wear and tear, all that kind of stuff. And this guy was trying to say that I was trying to cover all bases and pick both of them at the same time. Like, it does make sense. And yeah, I probably get perceived as being a Devin Haney hater, but that's not the case. Like, sometimes you just have to say it how it is. Got Joe Stunner in the house. He says, hello, Outmatch. Can't say that I'm sold on Wilder versus Joshua. They're both damaged goods. That could still be a decent fight. Neither has really rebuilt since bad defeats. Seems like a cash out. Yeah, I tend to agree. And obviously, it's good to have you here as well, Joe. I hope you can hang around. You make the point of them both being damaged goods. Surely, if both guys are damaged goods, it kind of equals, like, cancels out. It's one way of looking at it. Obviously, they're not the best versions of themselves, but it's kind of like when in the lead up to the Kell Brook Amir Khan fight, there was some intrigue there because both of them seemed to be completely washed. So it wasn't like one of the guys was still fresh and the other one had, like, taken a hammer in recent fights. They both looked very shaky, so it kind of cancelled out, as I say. Yeah, neither of them have really had a rebuild since, but I suspect that Deontay Wilder is in a much better place, purely because I think as a person, naturally, he's probably a bit more, I want to say a bit more resilient, but as a result of him being so deluded, he has that buffer, that bit of a barrier, whereas Joshua, a bit more grounded in reality, so it's almost like easier to get to him. And Wilder, his team really set up the perfect fight for him, the perfect comeback fight against a guy in Robert Helenius who kind of had some credibility because he was enjoying a little bit of an Indian summer, a couple of good wins over Kovnasky, was dangerous himself, at least, had a puncher's chance. But Wilder was also familiar with him. So it was just like the ultimate, the perfect opponent for Wilder to bounce back against. Joshua, on the other hand, went in against Franklin, who that was probably always the fight that was going to be on the table, especially after the way the Franklin White fight went down. But Franklin is tricky, quite capable as a fighter, and completely unheralded, especially amongst casual fans. And Joshua went 12 rounds. I still haven't seen that bloody fight though. I can't find a copy to save my life. It's really frustrating. I think it's nearly a month now and I still haven't watched it, but I saw some highlights, and yeah, Joshua didn't look great. And you just wonder what's that going to do to his confidence as well. But I still think the fight will be good. But I do agree, if Joshua takes that fight, it's a cash out. That's basically what it is. So I think he needs to have a long, hard think about whether this is what he wants to do, because he could potentially be ruined. Yeah, this Bridgerweight division BS needs to stop. It's just it's pointless. I think there's no need for it. You fit into one category or another. You know, heavyweight. That's part of the appeal of heavyweight as well. Is you can see some like real freak shows because there's no weight limit. Although you can see that elsewhere in other divisions, like Fundora, isn't he like 6'6" and he's fighting at light middleweight or middleweight? It's crazy. Guy needs a meal. Who wins? Zhang versus Andy Ruiz. Well, I don't know if you guys know, but Zhang, he bangs everything. So, uh, I like Zhang. I like his style. Um, I think he's a very capable fighter. Uh, but Andy Ruiz is a good fighter himself. It's always tricky because Andy Ruiz is one of those fighters where when you're trying to pick his fights, like fights of a decent level, it's always hard to say any, like predict with any confidence because you don't know what version of Ruiz is going to show up. He could come in lighter, which is probably unlikely, but he could come in massively heavier, touching 300 pounds, and be mostly useless if you're moving around. I'd be tempted. I want to say, I think that's a close fight. That is a close fight. Um, I'd be tempted to go with Zhang, to be honest. I'd be tempted to go with Zhang, but he'd really need to stick it on Ruiz because Ruiz is not like he's not like he's a pressure fighter, but he doesn't, at least when he's up against someone who's taller than him, he doesn't fight with a lot of urgency. But if he gets in range, he'll just shred you with those punches. So Zhang would like really have to plant something on him to make him gun shy. Even if you don't stop him from advancing, at least make him think, give you some time to kind of move off. But then Zhang's not a great mover. Seemingly has awful stamina. And, some people are going to say, oh, but he didn't look like he was gassing against Joe Joyce because he was just teeing off on Joyce from the opening bell. Like, you're not going to really gas out when you're having a fight that is that easy. So, you know what? Maybe Zhang, but I see that as like a 50-50 fight. I guess Zhang still does have some questions to answer though, whereas Andy Ruiz is a bit more of a proven quantity, but you just don't know what condition he's going to turn up in. Jordan Perry, he agrees. He thinks it's a cash out for Joshua. As soon as Wilder lands that right hand, Joshua will be out, in my opinion. I don't think Joshua is a massive puncher personally, like everyone else seems to think. I think Joshua is a puncher. He's a big puncher, but I think he has to maybe put a bit more effort into his punches. But the thing is, what separates Joshua from someone like Wilder, for example, is that Joshua has two-handed power and he has a much wider selection of shots. So yeah, he might not be the biggest puncher, but he can throw so many different punches with power with both hands. So it kind of it's a bit of a bonus in another direction. And I think Joshua still has more than enough power to hurt Wilder and knock him out, like for sure. But for years, I've just thought that Wilder is he's a bad matchup for Joshua. There's not one version of Joshua I can think of that, I think, oh yeah, he's got probably a really good chance of beating Wilder. I just think, when you see a guy and you're just like, I think this other fighter is his boogeyman. I think that could be Wilder for Joshua. Maybe if Joshua fought the way he fought Joseph Parker, a bit conservative, but at the same time, he had, a decent amount of confidence in that fight. And he looked to push the issue a little bit, but not recklessly. I think that version is probably potentially the best version, it going into a Wilder fight. But even then, I wouldn't. I'd be probably confidently picking Wilder. Yeah. So, and yeah, I agree. It is a cash out. it is a cash out. I think if Joshua goes into this tournament, if you can even call it that, because there's really only 2 stages. If he goes into that, yeah, it's a cash out, because if he wins, say, the Wilder fight, and he gets to have a rematch or a fight with the winner of Usyk versus Fury, then you could say, oh yeah, it paid off. But it's a massive gamble, because if he loses, I mean, really now, if Joshua loses again, it's a hard place to come back from. But he could prioritize his development here, but he's probably going for the money, going for greatness at the same time, because it's a way of springboarding himself back into the mix rather than going for those development fights. But this is what Joshua needs, and if he passes up this development process again, it's really his own fault, and that's assuming that it goes belly up and it doesn't pay off, because there was the Andy Ruiz fight. He lost the first one. He could have gone on that development route, chose the immediate rematch. And many people picked Joshua. Like, I picked Joshua quite confidently to win on points, as did many of the other guys on YouTube. And because it wasn't, but we were advising Joshua against that fight, not because he could lose again. Obviously he could, but it was more about, if he wins the titles back, he's straight back into the mix, got the target on his back, has to defend against all these mandatories, this, that. It's dangerous. Whereas he could take this time, step out of the spotlight, and go on that development route and potentially build back even better. But no, he chose to go into the immediate rematch. Lost to Usyk. He had another chance, chose the immediate rematch, and now he's no immediate rematch, but he's getting presented with this massive opportunity to fight these guys. So, some guys just like living in the fast lane. They're here for a good time, not a long time. Maybe that's Joshua's thought process right now. He's not really caring about legacy too much, in the sense that he wants to do it in the what do you call it? The route that is a bit more certain. He wants to go for the gamble, which you got to respect him either way, especially if he goes in against Wilder, because he could get cleaned out. Iron Fist says, correct, I agree about Haney. Definitely weighs around 155, 160 pounds on fight night. There are others as well. It's crazy how much weight they can cut these days. Yeah, it definitely is. And that's one of the things about boxing I don't like, is the whole weight cutting culture. It's just problematic. And I say this from like a participation perspective. Like, there's a lot of things that I've kind of fallen out of love with in regards to boxing. And the whole weight making process, and it really kind of spoils it. But then there are fighters that don't help themselves. There are fighters who they don't understand how to maintain a certain level of form outside of fights. So they see it as, okay, I've got my 8 or my 9, 10 weeks to get ready, and then the rest of the year outside of camp, I'm just going to be a slob. So you're not going to help yourself to really maximize your potential. Like, I remember Andre Ward, and I've got a lot of reservations about Andre Ward as a fighter. Like, don't underestimate that. But one thing he said that really resonated with me, I think it's in the lead up to his rematch with Kovalev. And obviously there are all these rumors that Kovalev was an alcoholic and wasn't living the life, and he was, lacking discipline. And Kovalev was bringing in like new trainers and new strength and conditioning coaches and all that kind of stuff, like really trying to push the boat out in his training, even though in the first fight he said he lost because he was overtrained. So he brought in more trainers for the second fight. Like, I'm not sure if that really adds up. But Andre Ward made a good point, because he said, I'm paraphrasing, but in essence what he said was, when you're a disciplined fighter, the progress and the maintenance of your training camps, the results of them, it compounds over years and years and years and years. And that is so true. But everybody in boxing particularly underestimates it. Like, don't look at the training camps. And I say this to people who are obviously fighting and competing and stuff. Don't look at the training camps as your window of improvement and you like reset back to baseline after everyone. You should be looking to get better over the course of every training camp, better in terms of technically, of course, like, but also your athletic potential, your fitness, all that kind of stuff. So you're relying on these 10-week windows, and then as soon as that fight is done, you're reverting back, and you might even go like right down to baseline or lower. You might lose even more fitness than you had way back. But if you stay on it, you're going to carry the progress into the next training camp, into the next training camp, into the next training camp, and you're developing as an athlete and as a fighter overall. And it's like it consolidates the progress you make. And Ward always he mentioned that, and that was like, this, for all his faults or for his faults as a fighter, he was on the money with that. And it's something that a lot of young and up and coming fighters, they can learn from, because there are guys in their early 20s and stuff like that, and they're turning pro, and they fall into that pattern of, oh, I've got my 10 weeks, 10 weeks out until fight night, so then I'm going to get ready. It's like, no, stay ready, and then you build off of that. But I am waffling. Joe says, I agree that both Joshua and Wilder can still produce a good scrap. Wilder's certainly more of a natural fighting man. Say what you like about Wilder, but level of courage is through the roof. Yeah, definitely. He ducked the Joshua fight back in 2018 and 2019. But Wilder, the fighter, he needs to get credit, not for his resume, but for his heart. He is someone who you have to nail to the canvas, because he'll carry on, he'll get up and he'll get up and he'll get up. Like, he's shown that in the Fury, while the second fight and the third fight in particular, like, there was no quit in Deontay Wilder, and Fury really had to like just lay him out completely. But yeah, Wilder's a real true fighting man. Joshua, I mean, you probably saw the other day, like, he admitted to being an overthinker, and you want to be cerebral in certain aspects of life, but when it comes down to certain moments in your life, especially in boxing, you just need to stop thinking and start doing. And that's probably what Joshua struggles with. Iron Fist talking to Jordan. Andrew Ruiz looks like another case of wasted talent. Imagine how he'd do if he wasn't in love with his fridge. Yeah, it makes you wonder. Would Ruiz even be a heavyweight? He might be a bridgerweight. You never know. Might be a cruiserweight. Yeah, it's a shame, really. It's a shame, but it just goes to show, like, in this division, this era of heavyweight boxing, like, Ruiz has got some formidable strengths, but he's also got weaknesses. Firstly, he's addicted to food. That's clear. And obviously that's not necessarily related to boxing, but it spills over. So even a fighter as good as Ruiz has weaknesses, just like all the other fighters. They're great. They have great strengths, but there's something that you can capitalize on, and it results in great fights. Andrew Tate, 1985. Saying that name has probably just demonetized this live stream. So thanks for that. I'm pretty sure that's Pudding Jim anyway. I remember that picture. Joshua should avoid Wilder. It's clearly a cash out. A good summer fight could be Gerald Washington or Jarrell Miller. Yeah, maybe. I think the Miller fight would sell well, or relatively well, just given that they have history. But I don't know. It's like, this is when the business of boxing interferes, because how many subscriptions will a Gerald Washington or Jarrell Miller drive? And I'm not saying that as if like, oh, that's my rationale for not getting behind these fights, but putting my manager's cap on, or my DAZN employee's hat on, how realistic is it? yeah, I agree that Joshua definitely needs more confidence building fights. You know, if he was to fight White in July, I think that's a passable fight because he fought Jermaine Franklin, who some people feel beat Dylan White, then moves on to Dylan White, and then something in December. Um, but hey, it's I feel like Joshua is in a position where he can't really win because you know if he doesn't fight Wilder in December and he fights one of these guys, they're going to say, "Oh, he avoided Wilder. You know, the Wilder fight was there for him." But then if he does fight Wilder, they're going to say, "Oh, why is he doing that for? He knows he's going to get knocked out, something like that." So yeah, Joshua's got to do what he wants to do. If he's fighting for money, go for the big money fight. If you're fighting for legacy, go for the development fight. Don't listen to what anyone says. Mike says, "Salute. Hope you're doing well. Surely now you have to favour Wilder. AJ's head is gone, and surely Wilder will land at some point. 2017 to 18, I probably would pick AJ, but at least 50-50. Firstly, Mike, I'm not doing too bad. Thank you, mate. Hope you're doing all right as well. Yeah, I agree. You know, I favour Wilder. And as I was saying, I don't know if you were in the stream that time, but I've pretty much always fancied Wilder over AJ. Pause. I don't mean it like that. Um, uh, yeah, stylistically, I could see how Joshua could win, but I can't see it being a reality in terms of like actually unfolding. I think Joshua probably would get cleaned out and early as well. Jared Anderson versus Frank Sanchez. Yeah, that's a good fight. Very good fight. Might be a little bit too early for Anderson to win, but I think he put up a good fight and he could still win. But if he wanted the best chance, he might need a couple more fights because Frank Sanchez is a handful, even though he's like 49 years old. Like, how old is? I swear, Frank Sanchez is supposedly like 29 on his box rec or something like that. That is a lie. Yeah, he's on box rec. Frank Sanchez says 30. How dare they? How dare they insult our intelligence? Just look at the man's face. He's closer to 50 than he is to 30. Pull the other one. Who do you pick out of Fury and Usyk? I see it as a 50-50, but think Fury wins personally. See a 7-5 points decision. I've said it before, and I'm not saying this to be deliberately contrarian or as a reaction to Fury duck in the fight, because you can check my videos and my live streams before that. I am actually picking Usyk, like based on previous form. I just think I don't see it as like being a massive landslide victory for Usyk. I actually see it the other way around. So like 7-5 to Usyk, maybe like a split decision. But I think Usyk has more than enough to beat Fury. I don't think like people always want to say, and they've been saying it for years, oh, Fury's the best because he moves so well and he's so big and he's just this and he's just that. Fury, out of his own mouth, and yes, it was years ago, 10 years ago, he admitted that the Steve Cunningham fight was the hardest fight of his career. And Steve Cunningham, great fighter, but not really in the same league as Usyk. And yeah, Fury's better now, but Usyk is just a tremendous fighter. And yeah, Fury could still win. 100% receive that. I understand how he could win. And I wouldn't be picking Usyk confidently, but my gut tells me that Usyk wins. Because, you know, people want to talk about size. How's Fury going to keep up with Usyk? How's he going to land on Usyk? You know, it goes both ways. The bigger guy isn't by default better. Doesn't work like that. And I think if this fight happens, hopefully it does, when they're in the ring together, I think you'll see how fighting the likes of Deontay Wilder and, you know, these other bigger heavyweights has flattered Fury, because it's not really that difficult to look slick against someone like Deontay Wilder, who, you know, struggles to hit water even if he falls out a boat. You know, yeah, Wilder does eventually land, but takes him a while sometimes, and that's going to be quite flattering on Fury's defense. But when he's in against a guy who's completely different, yeah, maybe not the puncher, but much more agile, much quicker, technically a lot better. It becomes a different ball game. But yeah, I'd be picking Usyk. Disturbingly wicked. Oh, True Crime with G-Man. How you doing, man? I don't think I've seen this channel. Have you renamed it? So I thought it was called True Crime with G-Man. But yeah, hope you're doing all right, man. Hopefully you can stick around for a bit. Sports fan 1. Having watched the AJ Franklin fight and studied what was happening, I actually think it was one of AJ's best technical performances. I need to watch this fight. I've seen highlights and it looks very reserved. And that's the thing. A lot of the time when fighters fight in a reserved fashion, sometimes it's because they're trying to be a bit more technical. So you can actually be like, okay, you can kind of see the cogs going around a bit more. They're using a bit more IQ. However, it's in a slower fight, it's kind of easier to be technical, if that makes sense. That's why some of the other fighters who are technical, even when they fight at a really high pace, like Lomachenko, for example, he's one of those guys who's known for setting a really high pace, but also being really technical. That's what makes it so impressive. Whereas, you go to the gym and you watch a relatively relaxed, easy pace spar, you're going to see some of the best technique you ever see in boxing. But it's because it's being fought at pedestrian pace. But yeah, I'll definitely check out the AJ fight. And when I can actually find it. I'm not going to pay for a DAZN subscription just to watch that fight. Nah. All right, Anthony Joshua needs to wait until December so he can be more prepared for Deontay Wilder. Joshua can learn more from Derek James and get more training preparation for you. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Time is money in the bank, really. Like, he could go straight in, earn a shed load of money, or he could take the slow and steady route, maybe become undisputed champion one day. And because the thing is as well, like, Joshua's already minted. This guy earned something like 3 million for a British title fight against Dylan White. And that was nearly 8 years ago, 7.5 years ago. But I don't know what he wants. I don't know. It's down to him at the end of the day. It's his career, but it's just, as an outsider looking in, it's like, what is going on? Okay, so renamed and relaunching in June. Okay, is there any reason for that, or you just fancied shaking it up? Pudding Jim. Apologies about the name change. Have revert back to my old name. Okay, right. I can rest now. Don't have any strangers in the chat. Do you think DAZN would entertain Joshua fighting Zhang in the summer? Would they entertain it? As a fight, yeah. If they're willing to do Joshua versus Franklin, I think absolutely they'd probably do Joshua versus Zhang. Especially now that Zhang has just taken Joe Joyce's scalp. So, a lot of people see, and I'm guessing that the people at DAZN probably see Joyce as maybe a bit dangerous for Joshua. And that's one thing. It's like, okay, if you beat this guy after he's just come off of beating this other guy, you kind of inherit that win. It doesn't work like that, but many people hold that perception. So, yeah, I think they would. However, Joshua's potentially linked to this 4-man tournament, and Zhang's potentially linked to or tied down to an immediate rematch of Joyce. So, I don't think they'd even attempt to make it, but I think it'd be an acceptable fight. But yeah, it's just those barriers that get in the way. It's the main issue, I think. It's fascinating to see how AJ and Wilder have fallen, but Wilder, being so stupid, actually has a high level of confidence despite being rendered unconscious. Yeah, exactly. So what I was saying before is Wilder's delusion works in his favor, and that's what the famous quote by Conor McGregor. He says, to achieve great things, you have to be a little bit gone. You can't be totally sane. You need to have a couple of cards missing, maybe. And Wilder is not exactly an all-time great heavyweight champion, but he's when he's in a fight, when he's in the ring, and he's kind of coming up against some heat, he's not someone to leave the kitchen. He'll stick with it until you render him unconscious, as you say. Yeah, I didn't like the original name and reasons for June. It gives me a chance to work over the next month, build up a lot of content. Yeah, exactly. Don't be like me, who I just make videos on the day and upload them. I don't do anything in advance. Just purely reactionary. It's terrible. But hey, it's working. It's worked so far. All right. Okay, we are up to date with the comments. 41 minutes in. I don't know if I'm going to go for that long on this one, chaps, because I'm actually at Mrs. Outmatch's house. So I've got husband duties this evening. But what else is there to talk about? Any headlines? Kicked off talking about Canelo versus Ryder next week. Is it next week? Yeah, I think it is. Jordan mentions Smith versus Eubank 2. I don't know. My brain is telling me Smith, but my heart's telling me Eubank, just because it seems like the kind of fight where Eubank could probably get his own back. But I don't know. Like, the thing is, Simon Jordan the other day, he actually called Eubank Jr. a charlatan, which was very strong. And like, he was talking to Eubank Jr. because he was on a live feed call, and you kind of think, who's this idiot? Simon Jordan probably never even laced up a pair of gloves in his life. He's probably never even walked past a boxing gym. Well, I'm sure he has. I'm just exaggerating, but he was talking a lot of smack, and as I say, he called Eubank Jr. a charlatan but he had a point. His delivery wasn't great, but he had a point. And it's that, you don't really know what you're getting with Eubank Jr. There's a lot of smoke and mirrors that goes on, because he's clearly got ability. I'm never going to dispute that. But what level of ability? What level is Eubank Jr.? Is he world level? I don't really know, to be honest. Like, whenever he stepped up to legitimate world level against George Groves, because he fought Billy Joe Saunders. Billy Joe Saunders was European level at the time. So does that make Eubank Jr. a European level fighter? Because like, you can have world level attributes, but if the rest of your game is lacking a bit, I don't think you can be considered a world level fighter. I'd consider Liam Smith to be a world level fighter. Very experienced at world level, former champion. And I think Liam Smith really impressed me in that fight. Not because he did anything that surprised me technically, but just how energized he looked, how strong he looked. He looked like someone who still had plenty in the tank, still plenty of good performances ahead of him. Whereas I thought Eubank Jr. looked flat. I thought, he managed to get off a couple of punches off in the third round or something, but I don't think Eubank Jr. looked good at all. Just even the way his body looked, he looked weak, and he looked weedy in comparison to Liam Smith, who is obviously called beefy for a reason, but he didn't even look strong. Like, Liam Smith just looked like a bull in comparison. So my head's telling me Liam Smith, but I don't know, call it instinct. I have this feeling that Eubank Jr. could potentially get his own back, but I wouldn't be betting. However, speaking of bets, once again I find myself kicking myself because I don't know if you guys saw for the Davis Garcia fight, I predicted that Davis would win by stoppage in round 6 or 7. What round was it? 7. But I'm not a betting man apparently, because whenever I do bet, I'm always way off. So yeah, not a bit cheesed off with that one, but it is what it is. It's all fun and games. Joe says, I'm in good company. Literally every one of my videos has been off the cuff, hit record button and see what happens, hit and miss effort. Yeah. But to be honest, like, I think the nature of the videos we do, Joe, this is how it's going to be. Like, we can't predict what comes up in the future. So unless we're going to do some kind of retrospective on a fight that's happened years ago, that's the only one we can really do in advance. But yeah, sometimes you just got to make it, chuck it out there, and see what happens. And look, neither of our channels is doing particularly badly, so something's working. And actually, I've heard a couple of times how a lot of you guys, I don't know if it's anyone in the chat, but I've had people comment saying how they actually prefer videos that are a bit more off the cuff and not scripted, not edited, kind of having all the mistakes and stuff like that. I think probably a bit more natural, that kind of thing. So different strokes for different folks. Like me personally, I kind of, when I look at the people who I watch on YouTube, not just boxing channels, but all channels, it's like a mix of, really heavy edited videos with loads of transitions and like a feature film almost. And then there are just other guys. Like there's one guy who I watch. He's a strength and conditioning coach, and he addresses a lot of topics regarding training and stuff like that. And he films them on his phone. His videos are very rarely longer than 2 minutes or 2.5 minutes. And he just talks and he plays some clips of his own training relative to the topic he's talking about. Like super low maintenance channel, but he gets, thousands of views. Not a massive channel, he's only got like 5k subs, but it does the job. He gets his point across and people love it. And then there's me, prediction videos I waffle on for like 17 minutes. People probably don't even stick to the end of it to see who I'm actually picking. Jordan says, Marshall going for undisputed at 168 against Cruz, who you got. If I was picking someone, it'd be an absolute guess because I like Marshall, but I have absolutely no clue of what Cruz brings to the table. I know she's a bit old. Isn't she in her mid-30s? So, yeah, I can't say. I don't watch women's boxing. It's very sexist of me, I know, but at the same time, I don't watch low quality men's boxing if I can get away with it. So, yeah, I just really pay attention to the fights that interest me, because the thing is like there are only so many hours in a day. When a fight goes 12 rounds or 10 rounds, you're there for a little while. So, I do like Marshall. I've always been impressed by her ability. I've always thought like she's actually got decent skills, decent power. But yeah, I don't know anything about Cruz. I know her name. That's all you're getting from me. All right. Approaching 50 minutes now. What I'm going to do, check some headlines, see what comes up. Pudding Jim says, are we finally going to see Spence versus Crawford this summer? That's one of those fights, to be honest. I'm not going to believe it's happening until the first bell goes. And I'm so, out of all the fights to fall through, that one and Usyk versus Fury, It's just massively frustrating. And the thing is as well, like, I'm less privy to the situation regarding um, Spence Crawford falling through, but it doesn't seem like Team Spence is particularly keen on that fight. And I spoke about this before, how people were suspicious when Crawford mentioned the amount of money that got put forth to make the Spence fight happen. Now saying, "Oh, which..." They were talking about. Sorry, people. Someone's just ordered food to the house. Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, people were suspicious of this money. Like, where's this money come from? But then when you factor in that Crawford got paid, he got paid millions for fighting Avanesian. It's like, okay, maybe this isn't so far fetched that people did put this money forth for the Spence fight. But yeah, it's very frustrating. I'm just going to wait and see what happens. I'm not going to get my hopes up. If anything, I'm just going to divert my attention elsewhere, and hopefully something comes of it. Joe Stunner says Cruz the Zone is big, powerful, but lacking a bit of skill. If Marshall can handle the pressure, she can outbox at that point now. Yeah, I think I've seen probably like a few clips of Cruz. Yeah, I don't know. Just I like Marshall. I think she's got good style. I think her issues are mental though. I think she's always suffered from anxiety. That's held her back a little bit. Yeah, but I think she's got a decent amount of talent. She just needs to bring it all together against the best opposition. Jordan Perry says, Chelly going for the British against Hefron is a cracker 50-50 for me. Yeah, Chelly's interesting just because he fights like an absolute madman at times. Yeah, Chelly, he's racking up some decent wins at kind of British level. So, okay, is that on BT Sport? Zach Chelly. Let's have a look. Box rec. Zach Chelly. Okay, so that's not until June. What's that? Oh yeah, okay, yeah. All right, that's Sky Sports then. It's on the undercard of Eubank Jr versus Liam Smith. Okay, yeah, that's a decent fight. That. Yeah, not bad. Yeah, so far Liam Smith versus Chris Eubank Jr main event. Mark Hefron versus Zach Chelly. Cruz Zone versus Marshall, and then Natasha Jonas versus TBA. Well, in my opinion, half the card looks good so far. Maybe I'm being harsh, but yeah. Yeah, we'll see how that one goes down. All right, chaps. I think coming up to 8:30 now. Gone for just over 50 minutes. My throat's hurting a little bit. Too much talking. So I'm going to call an end to this one now. Quiet weekend live stream. And it's bank holiday weekend as well. So hope you guys have fun, whatever you're doing. And I'm not sure. Maybe I talk to you guys on the what would it be? Canelo versus Ryder prediction video. If that one's even worth making a prediction video for. I think I know what I'm going for. Canelo on points. No, that'd probably be Canelo stoppage. But yeah, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Thanks for joining me, folks, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace out.